Urgent. Russia is in panic. The front is on fire. Critical situation near Pokrovsk. The enemy is pushing deeper into the city. Mirnohrad is under threat, but Pokrovsk is holding on. The elite of the Ukrainian forces have entered the battle there. The Kremlin is in shock. The Russians are even resorting to artificial intelligence to cover up their own failures. The Russian army is suffering colossal losses and is losing control of the situation. In the Kupyansk direction, the occupiers are fleeing, unable to withstand the fierce counterattack by the Ukrainian Armed Forces. Our soldiers are reclaiming positions, destroying the enemy and pushing them back further and further. Russia is losing on all fronts. This is Ukraine Today with you, Zoria Slava Kolesnikova. Don't switch channels. Coming up, details from the front lines where the fate of the war is being decided. Critical situation near Pokrovsk. The enemy is trying to break deeper into the city. The front is ablaze and Mirnohrad is under threat. The Russians are amassing equipment and manpower, attempting to cut off Ukrainian logistics as they gradually advance toward the very heart of Pokrovsk. But the Ukrainian defense is not allowing them to do so. Analysts from Deep State emphasize
the enemy continues to build up its forces in the city, where it is constantly being tracked and struck literally throughout the entire settlement.
Ukrainian soldiers are holding the defense, engaging in fierce street battles and destroying enemy equipment and manpower by all available means.
At the same time, there is a gradual takeover, where the Russians are already establishing control over the area, setting up positions, creating staging areas, and managing their logistics to infiltrate the city.
The fiercest fighting is taking place between Pokrovsk and Rishine. The occupiers are trying to capture Rishine, but Ukrainian special units are conducting sweeps and holding key logistical hubs, preventing the enemy from breaking through the defense.
The enemy is also attempting to take control of the area between Pokrovsk and Rishine, while simultaneously trying to push into the latter. In this area, special groups are actively conducting physical sweeps. After all, this is a key logistics section for Pokrovsk.
Mirnohrad is under threat, scouts warn. The Russians are trying to isolate the city, cutting it off from supplies and communications.
Mirnohrad is simply being cut off from the outside world, and its loss would be the most painful among all the major cities, because it will be taken even without the enemy properly securing their positions there.
The front is on the edge. Pokrovsk is turning into an arena of total battle. Ukrainian drones and assault groups are destroying the enemy, but the situation remains tense. The enemy is consolidating, logistics are under threat, and peaceful cities are on the brink of catastrophe. But our forces are already preparing a fiery trap for the enemy. Elite units have entered the battle. In Donetsk region, these are the fiercest battles of recent months. The very best have been sent to Pokrovsk. Elite forces of the Ukrainian army. Among the Ada battalion is Yevhen Diki, director of the National Antarctic Scientific Center.
There isn't even close to a cauldron there. There is no threat of our forces being encircled there. There was never really any talk of an encirclement in Pokrovsk. In fact, GUR units were sent there. Moreover, even open sources now report that Budanov himself is personally commanding them there. Special Operations Forces units were sent there, and even SBU units were deployed as well.
But the situation is critical. According to him, this is already firefighting. After all, GUR, SBU and Special Operations Forces units, they usually operate behind enemy lines, not in open infantry battles.
The very fact that GUR, SBU and Special Operations Forces are being sent there is an indicator that the situation is close to catastrophic.
Meanwhile, a serviceman from the 68th Separate Jaeger Brigade with the call sign HUS reported that enemy infiltration is taking place from the southern and southwestern directions. And it is precisely there that the enemy is trying to gain a foothold.
Certain positions may change hands, but at this moment it cannot be said that the enemy has stable control over any part of the city. It is all a gray zone.
Pokrovsk is holding on, but every meter comes at the cost of incredible effort. The enemy is pressing with all its might. The city is turning into a gray zone where a new level of street warfare is taking place. The Kremlin is in a panic. Russia is hiding its weak spots and resorting to artificial intelligence to conceal its defeats near Pokrovsk. The Kremlin is launching a new wave of fakes on TikTok, videos about the mass surrender of Ukrainian soldiers. Near Pokrovsk, these videos are actually created using AI. This was reported by the Center for Countering Disinformation of the National Security and Defense Council. According to the Center for Countering Disinformation, dozens of accounts are spreading synchronized videos in different languages. They are passing off fabricated surrenders as real events. This is a coordinated information attack aimed at a foreign audience to create an illusion. Namely, that Ukraine is losing and that helping it is pointless.
Russian forces are not giving up their attempts to capture Pokrovsk. Fierce fighting for the city continues. Ukraine's defense forces are holding back the enemy. The campaign about mass surrenders is the informational component of the Russian military operation.
Inside Ukraine, these fakes have a different goal: to demoralize the population, sow panic, and create the impression of a catastrophic situation at the front. The Kremlin is trying to cover up its own losses and failures, while Ukrainian troops continue to hold the line near Pokrovsk.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
But most importantly, Pokrovsk is holding on. This is the hottest spot on the front, but the city has not broken. The Pokrovsk direction remains the epicenter of fierce fighting. The enemy is throwing tens of thousands of troops there, trying to break into residential neighborhoods and cut off supply routes. Our soldiers are firmly holding back the enemy's pressure. The situation is tense, but control over communications has been maintained. Will the enemy break through the defenses in the southern districts? What forces and reserves are being used to maintain logistics? Watch now for all the details.
Indeed, the enemy is present in almost all neighborhoods and districts of the city.
The most difficult direction, Syrsky and Budanov, are already there. The Pokrovsk direction remains the hottest spot of combat, but as Syrsky reports, the city is holding on. In the
Pokrovsk-Mirnohrad agglomeration, our soldiers have to hold back the pressure of an enemy force numbering in the thousands, which continues its attempts to infiltrate residential areas and cut off our supply routes. However, there is no encirclement or blockade of the cities. We are doing everything possible to maintain logistics and...
How close exactly are the enemy forces currently to encircling or...
Blocking is the act of stopping or preventing something from happening or moving forward. For example, in sports, a player may block an opponent to stop them from scoring. In technology, blocking can mean restricting access to certain websites or applications. The main goal of blocking is to create a barrier that delays or prevents an action or event. What does this mean for the city? The width of the bottleneck that would be needed to finally close this pocket, effectively sealing off the area, is about 5 kilometers, which is just over 3 miles. This narrow stretch is the critical point that must be controlled to cut off access in and out of the pocket.
Alongside Syrsky, the head of the Khor, Budanov, has also been spotted. It is assumed that he is personally involved in coordinating the defense.
Mr. Syrsky went there solely to show that there is no encirclement. In other words, he proved all the Russian propagandists wrong. He came to the site and showed everyone that there is no encirclement, no ring. But again, we don't know how deep into the city he actually went. But
still, the main task, however, actually lies elsewhere.
The question is not about holding the city. The question is about buying time and allowing our military to get out of this trap. Especially to the south, at the very bottom, when you look at this pocket, our units are there as well, our soldiers, and the goal is to give them the opportunity to get out of the encirclement and, if possible, of course, to pull out as much equipment, vehicles, and various weapons as possible.
It is known that Budanov led the GUR airborne operation in Pokrovsk. Now, combined groups from the Special Operations Forces, Military Law Enforcement Service, the Security Service of Ukraine, and other units of the Ukrainian Defense Forces are working there.
It's not about stopping the advance of the Russian army entirely with GUR fighters alone. The point is to buy time. A day, 2, 3, maybe a week, just enough for our troops to get out of this encirclement more quickly.
Nevertheless, the situation in Pokrovsk does not prevent Ukrainian forces from successfully eliminating the occupiers in the city one by one. Ukrainian forces have been holding the city for more than 13 months now, since the moment when, according to the Russians' plan, it was supposed to fall. But even if the city is lost, Ukraine does not lose.
Ukraine has gained time here for itself and for Europeans. In other words, over these 13 months, we have gained time to ramp up military production, to re-equip and to rethink our strategy. The Russians, without exaggeration, have lost time. They wasted it. Thank you. Yes, they will capture this city this week, next week, or by the end of the month, and they will be terribly pleased about it. And
Still, why has Russia intensified its offensive in this particular direction right now?
Pokrovsk has simply become a regular feature in the constant reports from the Russian General Staff in the Kremlin. I think someone there lost their temper and said, "How much longer? You've been dancing around it for 13 months and still have no success. Do something?"
Everything they can. For Russia, the concept of cost does not exist. Every meter of land is thousands of Russian bodies, and all of this just so the Kremlin dictator can put another check mark on the map. It's real hell on the front line. In the Kupyansk direction, the occupiers are burning and fleeing, unable to withstand the fierce attack of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. Ukrainian forces have broken through the enemy's defenses, breached their positions, and are destroying everything in their path with lightning speed. Russian units are in panic, their losses are colossal, and the Ukrainian counteroffensive is advancing. Like a storm, leaving the enemy no chance and showing no mercy. Will the occupiers be able to hold even a single position, and what is behind the sudden breakthrough of Ukrainian forces? All the fiery details are coming up in the report. The situation in the Kupyansk direction remains difficult. But Ukrainian forces are confidently holding the defense and delivering precise strikes against Russian troops.
Russian plans, despite being focused on the city center, are currently facing setbacks. Moreover, there is reason for cautious optimism that even in the northern areas where they tried to concentrate their forces, things are not going so well for them now. They were hit with several targeted and heavy strikes, as a result of which their advance there has now stalled.
The enemy is now being forced to change tactics. Instead of a direct breakthrough to the city center, the Russians are trying to bypass Kupyansk from the flanks.
If anyone does get encircled there, it will definitely be unexpected. The Russians simply aren't present in the city in such numbers or positions to encircle anyone.
At the same time, the situation with the so-called double air blockade remains. Russian drones are capable of attacking Ukrainian logistics while being near Kupyansk. However, Ukrainian drones are also delivering mirror strikes against enemy infantry groups and equipment. Logistics are complicated for both sides, but control over key routes and transport hubs remains with the Ukrainian army.
Additional operational reserves of the Ukrainian Defense Forces have been deployed to stabilize the situation in this settlement.
For the enemy, Kupyansk is not the main objective, but rather a diversionary maneuver. According to experts, the Russian Federation is using a 1,000 cuts tactic, creating pressure on secondary sectors to distract attention from the main strike. According to the General Staff, the highest intensity of fighting is currently observed in the Pokrovsk direction. The
occupier faces a question: redeployment of operational reserves. The point is that due to the water barrier, the river that divides the Kupyansk area, the occupiers are unable to quickly transfer operational reserves and reinforce their assault groups. At the moment, the occupiers are trying to concentrate their main attack direction in the area of the Kupyansk railway junction. They are in dire need of control over this key railway station. A short logistics shoulder, both from the territory of the Russian Federation and accordingly from the occupied areas of Luhansk region, will allow the occupiers to create a strike group which will then plan to advance along the Oskil River towards the Sloviansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration.
The situation for the occupiers is not the best in the rear either. Ukrainian forces are delivering preemptive strikes on the enemy's strategic facilities, ammunition depots, and fuel and lubricant storage points. The goal is to deprive the Russians of the ability to supply assault groups and to stop their advance even at the approaches.
Over the past week, Special Operations Forces drones have carried out a series of strikes on oil depots in temporarily occupied territories. areas of the Luhansk region, which were at that time being actively used to supply fuel and other essential resources to units of the Russian occupation army, both in the Lyman direction and primarily in the Kupyansk direction. In particular, Special Operations Forces drones attacked oil depots in occupied Starobilsk, which is precisely in the Kupyansk direction, and in Luhansk. In recent days, SOF drones have struck a number of field ammunition depots in the temporarily occupied areas of Luhansk region, which is intended precisely to reduce the intensity of attacks by Russian occupiers in this direction.
So, while the situation on the battlefield is far from a breakthrough, on television screens Moscow continues to claim victory. The Russian Ministry of Defense is once again reporting the capture of Kupyansk and the destruction of the 16th Mechanized Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. However, there is one nuance. Such a brigade does not exist. According to Moscow, the fictional brigade allegedly lost 8 soldiers, and Ukrainian units near Petrivka and Velika Shapivka have found themselves surrounded. In reality, nothing has changed. Heavy fighting continues near Kupyansk. But the city remains under Ukrainian control. Russian forces are suffering losses, changing tactics, and searching for alternative routes. And despite the pressure, Ukrainian defenders continue to hold the line and once again shatter the myth of the Kremlin's invincible army.
Friends, the front is ablaze, but the armed forces of Ukraine are standing strong and striking the enemy every day. Don't believe the Kremlin's fake news. Truth is on our side. And victory? It's already very close. Subscribe, leave a like, and write words of support for our soldiers in the comments. Together we are stronger.